So I think we're close to passing the 5-minute mark, so let's just get started. I'm seeing a trend with these community calls. By the way, I'm Mikkel. I represent Fermyon here. We also have Karthik on the call who's representing Fermyon. Karthik is doing a recording of what's going on, so just be mindful about that. You don't want to share a video or things like that on a recording. We absolutely understand. So at least you know that we are doing a recording of this. And I do see there's a trend in these meetings where we actually have a lot more people watching recordings than showing up. So as we do these meetings, we see it as a great opportunity to create those recordings that people can then come and see later. But thanks guys, thanks for popping by. Do you want to do a quick intro of yourself? If so, feel free to go on off mute and let us know who you are.
Yeah, I can happily do the intro. Yeah, I'm Murto. I'm interested in Rust and WebAssembly and finding my way around. I find what Fermyon does really interesting, and that's why I'm here. And I've been keeping an eye on the Spring repository and what are the issues and what's going on in the code. And I find it very, very interesting. And it seems like reminds me of like some idea I've had already years ago. So like kind of similar thing that I wish I could easily run this kind of untrusted code, write different languages, because my background is I've been doing Ruby, Go, Clojure, well now Rust also as a hobby. So many things, and I would also like do all of it in the same place. So I feel that spin is the thing, and I'm excited to learn more and get better at it.
Awesome. Great. Thank you and welcome. I mean, we probably have plenty of time today, so any questions, anything you want to discuss, we'll find time to that. I have a few announcements I want to get in and just show you a little bit on the latest update we have. But yeah, we'll have plenty of time to have any discussion you want to chat about.
That's good. Thanks.
I guess I'm next.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. I'm Ryan. I'm involved in the Rust community. I'm on the Rust project, Rust Foundation board. So coming from that angle, I'm very interested in WebAssembly. I've been kind of looking at WebAssembly for quite a while now, but I've been missing from the community for about a year and a half, and kind of slowly getting back in and figuring out what's happened since I've been gone, and interested to see what Fermyon is doing in the space. So kind of new to this, but interested to hear what's happening.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan, and thanks for popping by. And I don't know, Karthik, if you can go off of mute. You had something with recording and fans, and you want to give it a go? Too much background noise. Okay, fine. Let me do a brief introduction of Karthik. Karthik is one of the engineers at Fermyon. Karthik has in particular been doing a lot of work around our JavaScript SDK, which is also some of the things I just want to quickly showcase today. What we have been playing around with there. So yeah, so let's get going. I'm just going to share my screen, and I have a few announcements and updates that I think would be good to get out there. So this is just taking from our blog. We are going to be at Developer Week 2023, which I guess is next week, where that's going on in San Francisco. What I just wanted to call out here is that we actually do have some tickets we can give away. There's a second week of the Developer Week, which is virtual. And if you're interested in wanting tickets to go and, figure out what's going on there, I think we have a few talks as well. Just reach out here in Discord to me, and I can send you a link to how you can get tickets. Also, there's an email here on our blog site where you can reach out to Karen. So we'd be able to give you some. I think they're actually free, not even open passes. There you go. I mean, if you're not able to get to San Francisco by next week, then at least there's a virtual piece of that where you're able to join. We actually have similar opportunity for an upcoming Kubernetes community day that is happening in Amsterdam. It's actually 2 days later in February. I think it's around the 23rd and 24th, where we also, given that we are sponsoring part of that event, we have an opportunity to get you some discounted tickets if that's something you're interested in. So again, reach out on Discord and we'll figure out how to get you some of those discount codes. So that's where you can find us, and some of the things that are coming up next. I wanted to just spend a few minutes around the 080 version of Spin that we announced 2 days ago, February 7th. Yeah, that's 2 days ago. It's actually been released for a little bit longer than that, but we got the blog out and we got everything out 2 days ago. And the few updates that I think are really interesting here that I want to talk about is, first of all, we've started in the Java SDK to experiment a little bit with building some inbuilt routers inside of the SDKs. And I actually want to just go ahead and show you an example that I have here that we can go as a demo. Let me go over and show you my console instead. So I've been building out. So in the Spin application, let me just back up a little bit and give some background here. In the Spin application, we have this concept of composing applications on multiple components. And if you use HTTP as your component trigger, as you can see, it's defined here in my Spin application. You have this trigger-specific configuration down here where you map a specific component to serve a specific route on the endpoint that the application is listening to. So there's an opportunity where you can sort of, fan out or your URL or your API, web app structure based on multiple components. So you could imagine you had one component handling a path that, is a certain entity, I don't know, products, dogs, cats, whatever. And you can have another component taking care of another entity, which could then be customers or something like that. That would require you obviously to write 2 different WebAssembly modules. And there are definitely benefits to that, right? You can write them in different programming languages and you can have like very small module code bases and things like that. But it also can become a little bit tedious. And we've seen, more people who started handling more routes and more paths within a single component. And this is sort of where this idea of having inbuilt routers comes into play. So take this as a little bit of an experimentation, figuring out what type of pattern will sort of settle with people in terms of breaking out on the component level or having routers in your component. And, eventually there'll be a good mix and match for that. And a little bit more philosophically speaking, I think this is sort of the crux of when people ask the question about how big a microservice should be. I think these type of questions are the ones that come up. And I don't think there's any right answer. It's really like what fits your use case and how do you think it works well for you. But that's just to give you a little bit of background of why we're introducing the router and how it fits together with this component view. And you can just mix and match however you want to do that. So if we take a look at the actual, that's not the right one. Let me find the right JavaScript file. I think that was the compiled one I had there. Where is it? There you go. So this is the JavaScript component that we've written using our SDK. And what you'll see in here is, let me just go to the end of the file. Oops. There you go. What you see is that the handle request function, basically just that we implement in this JavaScript file. Normally, this is where we will go and handle the request within the file. But what we do is we hand it off to the router to handle the requests that are incoming. And it's built based on a framework called, I think it's called EDI. EDI router is the framework, the JavaScript framework that we use. So once you have, sort of you handle the request to the router, you can then start implementing these individual get or method handlers for all the various paths. So what you can see here is that I have a function here that handles get requests coming in on root and just returning there. I have another one handling get requests coming in on the path doc, and I have another function handling post requests on root, where we can go and just post back the data you have. So having a router like this in a JavaScript component, and I think we have an example of someone having used, I think it's called Gorilla Mux, something like that, in Go as well. So we see this in a few programming languages that people try and do this. But it just gives a very, very convenient way of having more of this code and share those functions that might be shared between the different method handlers within a single component, and you don't necessarily have to break everything out. So that's sort of the idea of this. And if we just quickly try and run this, we can go ahead and we can try and post, and we can see we get our post back. We can try and get a doc fact by asking on the doc path, and we can just hit the root as well. So that's one of these nice small enhancements that we've built into 0.8.0. If you're on an earlier version of Spin, make sure that not only do you upgrade Spin, you also need to go and update your templates. This, by the way, is a story that we... is it update? I think it's just update. Is it upgrade? I think it's upgrade. I actually don't remember right now. Let me check this out. Oops. Well, okay, it's install. This is funny. There's some improvement here, I guess, of the semantics of the CLI, if it's that hard. Anyways, but you would have to go and update, for instance, your JavaScript SDK templates by using this command. And finally, you would also want to update the JavaScript, the JS2Wasm plugin that is being used to compile the JavaScript into the WebAssembly module. So in this case, if you don't have the plugin, you have to do plugin install JS2Wasm, or you can do, I think, plugin update, and then you have to do a plugin upgrade JS2Wasm. And we can see I already have the latest version. So just make sure if you want to go and try this out, yeah, thanks Karthik in the chat, that you get these upgrades in so that you're good to go with the JavaScript. So the other really exciting thing in 0.8.0, and we're really excited about this, is that we have now added support to be able to distribute Spin applications through OCI compatible registries, so container registries. Container registries like the GitHub container registry, and all the other ones that are out there, like Docker Hub, and all the big cloud providers have container registries as well. So what this means is that if I build a Spin application on my machine, we can take the JS router that I have here. The way that this experience works today, and again, this is fairly early days, is that we rely on Docker to do login to container registries. We don't have a specific Spin command for that today. We will get that, but in these early stages, you would need Docker to actually do the registry authentication. So I have a personal access token in my environment right now, and I can go ahead and I can log into my GitHub container registry. And as soon as I'm in a folder on my machine that has my Spin toml file, which would be the root of my Spin application, I can then do a Spin OCI push command, and we can try to push a version 2 of our router. So we used this is the generic OCI format for how to name containers, right? This is the GitHub container registry. It's under my username. I give my application a name, and I can attach a tag to that, just like you from the container world and from OCI registries in general. So right now, Spin will go ahead and package up my Spin application and push it into that registry. And we can actually see if, I'm just bringing a GitHub over here, and I will change my screen. There you go. If I go and check my packages, and it's probably the least downloaded. There you go. I now have my Spin.js router in GitHub, version 2. I also had a version 1 up here. So that actually means that it's really, really easy for me now to start sharing and deploying my Spin applications to other machines. So how would I do that? Well, let me go and start, or just let me shell into, I have this virtual machine here. That's not what I want here, sorry. I have this virtual machine here, which is an Ubuntu. So this is a machine that doesn't have the JS router installed. It does have Spin installed, and I do have Spin. I don't have Spin there. Do I have Spin here? Let me check. I do have Spin. Sorry, I have Spin here in my root. I don't have it in the path. So I do have Spin 0.8 installed, but I don't have the application installed. So I can do Spin OCI, and I can start pulling this. And this is GitHub container registry IO. Well, I actually don't want to do pull. Let me do another one. But let me just fix this first. So this is JS router, and this is v2. So, well, I can pull the application down if I wanted to, right? So I could pull this down, figure out how I want to lay this out on my machine, but I could also just directly run it. So Spin OCI, oh, there you go. Spin OCI run will pull down this application now, and let me get into this other shell. And now I actually have that very same application running in my virtual machine. So there you go. And that is just really amazing. So I hope this gives you an idea of the path we are on in terms of improving and sort of chaining into existing ecosystems the same way that there is work going on by Microsoft in a project called Run WASI to enable you to run Spin applications in Kubernetes clusters, which is just, from our point of view, just broadening the use cases, or it's removing a lot of obstacles and impediments for people to get started building Spin applications, because a lot of this infrastructure and a lot of these things are already in place. So if you think about OCI as a distribution mechanism, being able to run in Kubernetes as well, there's a lot of opportunities to get Spin applications out there. So those were the two big things that I wanted to call out from the 08 release. There are a few other enhancements in terms of making secure connectivity to data stores, and and the ability to start actually sign your applications with cosign and SIG stores. So the OCI applications that I have can be signed as well. So again, supply chain security and all of that, we get some of that by hooking into the OCI ecosystem as well. So yeah, I think those were the main things to call out from the 08 release, and a few of the announcement of what's going on and where you can meet us in the coming months. And by that, I want to open up for any questions or conversations or ideas that anyone on the call wants to bring up.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks for sharing, and really cool to see these things, like rapidly moving forward. I was wondering, like, as I told you earlier, also that I have Ruby background as well, and I'm like kind of Ruby fan as well, among other things. I was wondering, like, I even actually don't know, like, so it's like a super high level question, to contribute at some point with with regards to Ruby SDK doing something like this. I wonder, like, have you discussed internally even like besides the current focus on JS and well JavaScript, TypeScript SDKs and Go and Rust, like, is there some other language SDK plans, or is the because I understand also that, for example, with Ruby, there's like, although the interpreter can be compiled to WASI, like basic to WebAssembly, but yeah, still it's very raw stuff, and I've been playing around with it a bit, and yeah, it's not that easy, especially like, well, compared to Rust situation where we have like
Yeah,
the big PyChain and everything.
exactly. It's a really, really good question. Where we are putting our engineering effort right now for sort of the next language is on Python. Python and Java are the ones that we've been looking into, but mainly Python right now. And I should say those are the two pieces or two steps that these languages need to go through. First one is good support for WASI. And you're right that with Ruby, and it's also what we do with JavaScript today. We do compilation of the interpreter, not the actual code. But I know in JavaScript there is work in progress in the broader ecosystem to actually do a more direct compilation from JavaScript to WASM and WASI. So that's so that first step needs to happen. I'm actually not aware of any ongoing effort on Ruby. We do have in our language guide, this is the latest update we have in Ruby that we put in there. I pasted a link in the chat. So, feel free to go and find some information there. But so that's sort of the first step, right? That's the WASI support and how efficient that can be. The next step would then be for Spin specifically to build an SDK where you can, interact with some of the features we have in Spin to enable outgoing network connectivity over HTTP or using database clients, hooking into a configuration system and those type of things that we typically build into our SDKs. And we don't have ongoing work on Ruby for an SDK, but I have seen a few community members picking up other languages and starting out on building SDKs there. In languages like Prolog and Nim, and there was another one. I don't remember which one it was. But those are sort of the two-step processes. And considering building an SDK in Ruby, we have lots of people who've done these SDKs. Karthik is one of them who's done stuff on the JavaScript side, and would probably be able to help, with some direction of what would need to happen to get just the basics up and running, for instance.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely makes sense, and I understand also like where your focus is going. It makes sense. Follow-up question, if I may, about the Java support. Would that mean also that or like other JVM-based languages such as Clojure, I don't know, Scala, Kotlin, that they would be able to use the same kind of approach or same mechanism to be compiled to WebAssembly?
Yeah, I think the specifics of it is that we did a fork, we did a friendly fork of the TVM virtual machine, and that's the one we are using for Java, and I believe that would also give support for these other languages. I'm not 100% aware of how much is needed beyond just the virtual machine, but the core of the work was focusing on getting TVM compiling into WASI.
Yeah. Actually, I remember now. I have seen the talk about it.
Yes, Joel did a talk at WASI today. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, then I think it should be possible if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks. Great stuff.
So Ryan, I know you're deeply involved in the Rust community, so I'm just gonna call you out, or at least I'm gonna ask you a question. This sort of this router pattern that I showed you in JavaScript. What's the Rust way? What do people do in Rust in these type of scenarios? Are there similar concepts of routers and frameworks that people use, or?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best person to ask when it comes to kind of latest and greatest HTTP handling and Rust, because I don't, when I do that, I kind of just grab what other people tell me to do. It's not my main focus, but I think kind of the winner in the space right now is a framework called Axum. And in Axum, you have the concept of routers and things like that. So it seems like it would be quite natural to, if you wanted to have a subset of your routes inside of one component, instead of doing the one component per one route path,
Yeah.
then you could easily hook into something like that. I have a question sort of kind of related to the multi-component versus one component question, which is one advantage to doing more inside of a component is that you can share resources. And this is less of an issue with Rust, which has a relatively small runtime. And even if you have to bring in like an async runtime like Tokyo, it's still going to be relatively small. But in languages like C# or something like that, where you have a large runtime, you have a garbage collector. If you're doing the one component per path route, then and let's say you have 100 paths or something like that, then suddenly you have potentially 100 .NET runtimes running inside of your application. Is there any thought on probably that's not really a problem that WebAssembly can solve. That's just the nature of the issue. But any thoughts on best practices or anything like that around that?
I think the best practice, as you say, is like, if you're using a language where the runtime is going to be embedded in your component, then fewer components will obviously make it smaller and more efficient. I did a talk yesterday, and I think the C# one is at, like, for a very basic C# handler, is at 18 megabytes per component, and the Rust one is around 2 megabytes. So just to give you some order of magnitudes there. So you would still need, obviously if you get to 100 components, I haven't seen an application with 100 components yet, then that would have a significant impact. But even still, 10 components would be a significant size for a spin application. I think the little bit longer term answer to this one would be how the component model can work in this case, where you'll be able to either link component at runtime or compile them or link them at compile time. And I would believe that something like this would then be able to, I'm guessing that would be the path where you can do some shared features. So in the component model that has been worked on in the WASI specification, the idea is that individual WASI WebAssembly modules can export and import functions that can then be resolved either by linking them at runtime or compiling them, linking them at compile time. And I would believe that something like shared functionality is the way that can be resolved. And what's interesting is that we haven't really spent a lot of time thinking through, because the component model is in so early stages, what component to component interaction means in a component model, versus where today the only way that components would interact is through endpoints or through external data stores or whatever. So that whole concept, I think, opens up a lot of opportunities. we just don't know what the practical implementations of those would be yet. There's a really good talk about the component model by Luke Wagner from Fastly. And I'll just see if I can find that, and I'll post a link to it in the chat. It is really interesting stuff, and sort of just WASI at the next level. It's gonna be amazing. There you go. And I think we also have a blog. I think Joel wrote a blog about components as well at one point. Yeah. So there are a few good links there to sort of get an idea of what the component model, what the idea behind the component model is, and how that can change some of this, some of these composition types of questions by writing WebAssembly applications. But it's a really good point, Ryan. It's a really good point be considered about the component sizes and how much the component has to carry in terms of the runtime. So see, we have a few more people who've joined. A few familiar faces, Opimipo, Rajat, welcome. If anyone who's joined the call a little bit later want to go off mute and just say hi, or if you have any questions, this is just an open mic type of thing we have going right now. So feel free, or use the chat if you prefer that as well. And I want to just let you know that we are recording the session. So whatever you say, we'll publish. Unless you don't want us to, then please just let us know, and we will not do that. Thanks, Ryan. Have a great day.
Yeah, I'm new here, so I can quickly introduce myself. I was just writing it up as well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Welcome.
Hi. Nice to meet you here. Yeah, so I've been following the whole WebAssembly scene for quite a long time. I'm an ex-Amazon guy, AWS, so I left AWS in 2020. And yeah, since then I've been, so I'm a big fan of function as a service. So, but in a way where you can actually hide your intellectual property and in a portable model. Yeah, and I've been working with SAP together with it. So I've been basically ramping up the SAP business for AWS in a partnership. I'm working from Germany. So I started in 2011 at AWS, certifying the SAP workload, and from there going into the customers and also for the SAP account itself. So they're becoming their big AWS customer. But like I said, I left AWS in 2020, and since then I'm basically freelance and setting up my own non-digital company. So I'm starting a distillery in parallel. So it's completely not.
What are you distilling?
Yeah, anything. So it's just being
It's just
installed right
anything.
now.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's in Germany. You have two types of distilling. So it's Abfindungsbrennen or Verschlussbrennen. So that's the two words. So I went for the latter. So you can actually create alcohol from anything you're allowed to do. So and then of course selling it, etc., creating a shop and everything. Yeah. So yeah, that's a very brief introduction. But I'm working for HPE now as well as a freelance. Yeah. No, it's more on contract as well. So they try to get into as a service. So and they are my old colleagues. So I thought, okay, I'll give them a hand. And yeah, it's a little bit difficult there. They don't understand what services are. So, but and working agile, so it's completely completely difficult right now, but that's fine. So I'm doing that with the left hand, so to say, and helping them a little bit. But as such, I'm also looking into this into a hybrid model for function as a service. So because I think, so old companies like HP, IBM, or whatever, so they just create hardware, but you can run that stuff anywhere. So my vision is basically to like yours, that you can run function as a service anywhere, even if it's on a board, an IoT board or whatever, and be independent from hyperscalers like AWS. And also, so that's basically. I'm a big fan of the operating model of cloud. So doing everything API based and in a DevOps and agile way, etc. So, but I'm not a fan of big companies having that in their reign, so to say. So it should be open, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you and welcome. I did not anticipate this to turn into or have a side conversation about distilleries when I joined this morning, but that's also great.
Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries.
You were asking
So,
for that, so I thought, okay, I'll give you.
yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Have you? I mean, yeah. To your point, having really the mission we're on with Spin. Specifically as an open source project is to establish what is the application framework that you want to use when you want to build these function as a service type of applications.
So you can have a look. So what I did together with SAP while I was still at AWS was build up a platform. So it's called Business Technology Platform, and they have an own programming model. So it's basically a sort of generators, like scaffolds and all that, So you have you program in that model, and then you basically have generators for creating for ramping up the services, the front ends, etc. So, and you can basically that's basically my idea is actually that you implement a programming model with tools like Spin, and that you can run it anywhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. And having Spin open source, I think when I go back and read some of the descriptions and analyst things around serverless things, they all fall back to this vendor login scenario. And I think what we can do with Spin now, because we build on top of WebAssembly and the portability and making everything open, but to an open specification as well. This idea of being vendor locked in when you do these functions as a service types of applications just isn't there yet, right? We're trying to break that with this model. And we've seen uptake of Spin as an application model in that Microsoft runs that in their Kubernetes offering today in Azure. So we hope that this is something that will evolve over time.
Yeah, it's so I've been looking at other things, and I think Fermyon is really on the right track. It's really cool that you also have have some reference implementations already, like a CMS and a game. It's really cool because I can just forward the link of the game, Finicky Whiskers, right? And say, okay, just go to you can play the game, and then you just go to the bottom right corner, and then it tells you what the architecture underneath is, and that is exactly what I want to tell you, right? So it's making my life very, very easy, even if there's a lot of discussion that I don't understand. I mean, that's
no, that's really good. Yeah, no, and we should do more of those type of use cases out there and just show people some of these real world scenarios that actually works really, really well. I mean, and for the CMS case, referring to Bartholomew, we've been running our website from day one on Bartholomew, and it's just been easy. Like it's really been a no ops thing. It's just running, and it's interesting serving websites like that in a function as a service model, but it works, and it just works really, really well.
Yeah, it's really cool, in fact. It's really so. I've been too long in this industry, so I started at mainframes and at IBM, and we're back to mainframe now with the hyperscalers. Basically, it's like a mainframe model, right? So it's just also services and it's nothing. It's just more distributed, okay. But now we're coming back to the open systems, right? So where you say, okay, it's open functions or open modules, whatever you can call it, but it's like a pendulum that's going back and forth, and it's basically open functions on a distributed infrastructure, hardware infrastructure, and that's really cool. And it's absolutely like you said, it's the next wave of cloud computing. I'm absolutely a fan of that. I will support that in any way I can. So you can have a look if you like more information on what SAP is doing in a programming model way. Then you can basically piggyback or slip underneath that programming model. Then I can basically give you some hints there or whatever. So I will go on and do that kind of work. So because I'm working in a team now at HP, also that is working in an SAP partnership. So they have an alliance.
Yeah.
So I'm still very closely working to SAP. I've been always like almost 30 years working with SAP in that mode of a partnership, be it IBM or HP or AWS. And pushing them to get further on the technology chain. And business technology platform is one of these, but it's basically a retarded model already. So I like the programming model, but the infrastructure that they run underneath is basically VMs or containers, right? So it's Kubernetes or what they call it, Cloud Foundry, and I think that can be better. And I mean, the next one would maybe be Fermyon underneath that, right? So and then you have it completely hybrid. Right?
Yeah.
No, thanks. Yeah.
Well, thank you for all the kind words, and I can hear sort of a little, some excitement coming from you, and I think I feel the same thing. Also, having been in this industry for more than 20 years now, is that it's been a while since I've been as excited about some technology that I am about WebAssembly and what's happening around the stuff that we do here. It is really, really exciting, and I think it's the verge of something completely new that we can do now. And
absolutely. Yeah. So, but I don't want to hijack your call more. So
no, that's fine. We're just doing open mic at this point. So any conversations you guys want to have, let's do that. We did do a little bit of announcement and and demos at the beginning. If you missed that, we'll post this on YouTube, and you can go and check out some of the new features we added to Spin, and give you an idea of sort of the direction things are going in.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I have a few students, in fact, that would like to test the platform. Is there a testing framework or any tests that you use to basically break the running platform? Like, do you have tests already there?
I'm so glad we have Rajat on this call. Rajat, I think this is Rajat is one of my colleagues at Fermyon. So, Rajat.
Okay. Yeah.
So we do have some integration tests that were already part of the Spin repo, but we have started some effort to basically build a framework around the existing test, and to be able to make sure that our tests, our examples, our SDKs, our templates, they continue to work as and when we release new features. So there is effort ongoing. We just last week merged the first set of changes for end-to-end test cases that we have been writing for Spin and Spin apps. So I'm happy to point you out to the code base. It's in the same Spin repo, by the way. And I'm working on adding more test cases, more scenarios, and the framework around how to test all these scenarios together.
Yeah,
so happy
cool.
to answer any questions around that area if you have.
Yeah. So my first thought is, okay, I'll have this running on AWS, of course, because I know that environment, and then spin up some apps. I really like that name, in fact, as well, spin up, right? and then basically do chaos testing on that, right? So like Netflix does in their environments, they just shoot some resources and then make sure that the environment is highly available, performant, so you can do some load testing, whatever. And there's some, yeah, we can use some open source tools on that as well. And then I would have two of my students, or one of them, in fact, performing these tests, right, and getting their hands dirty on the platform. So if you like, then we can do that.
Sure. So the effort that I'm currently working on focuses more around the functional side of the things. It will be good to understand what we want to do with the load test. We do have some internal load test that we run against spin, but I don't have much information about that. I'm not the right person to talk about that. But the one that I'm working on currently is focused more on the functional side of the things to make sure that, like I said, the templates, the examples, the SDK, they continues to work, and they if there is any backward incompatible change we are making, we should catch that before releasing it to the user, so that the user experience that our users and the community members have is awesome, and they should not have to deal with breaking examples and, like, with the new version their app stopped working kind of scenarios. So we want to avoid that. So that's what I'm focused on right now.
Oh, so
That makes
yeah, I
sense.
get that. So that's, let's say, traditional unit testing and end-to-end testing. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I'm more focused on the platform, right? So and then maybe you have that running as your own cloud as well. So I guess you have some tools there as well, or maybe you want to work on that as well. So on some, I mean, Netflix does. I don't know if you know the Netflix tools. They run on AWS as well for a big portion, and they do this chaos tank. So they have Chaos Monkey and whatever kind of tools that you can reuse as well. Basically to chaotically, but still in specific rules, shoot parts of your instance and then see how the whole architecture responds to that, right? So that's and like this, you can get a reference architecture for the platform, the overall platform that is stable. So that is something that I would like to sketch out. So how do you architect this across AZs, across regions, maybe, and for the different components like databases, front ends, whatever components you want to have, and then see that you have a solid architecture that is withstanding chaos, and that is not easy to break.
So we do have this. I just linked the repo. We do have something we call the installer, which is a way to set up a platform based on HashiCorp's Nomad for doing orchestration and other components. It is not what we run in the cloud. We run other stuff in the cloud for optimizations and multi-tenancy. But it sort of can give you an idea of how a platform to run spin applications could look like. We're sort of trying to figure out what to do with this project going forward, because as we put a lot of effort specifically in the API and UI pieces of our cloud, it's a lot of work to get it down to the platform, and we don't necessarily think that it's worth having parity. But if you take a look at that installer repo, that can at least give you a reference of how you could build a platform, a distributed platform to run spin applications.
Yeah, I've looked at that. So it's really it's very interesting. So you have a Terraform template where you just basically even for AWS, I can spin up these basically run that template. So that is the piece that I wanted to test. But basically, I'm then testing Nomad and other things like, right. So and maybe we can also reuse other components like you do. And I saw that one of your founders was talking about how you can speed up the let's say the startup time. So there's some tricks that you do on the cloud side to actually put the WASM modules into a different format so that they start quickly, so that That's
Yeah,
kind
I
of
think
showstopper
I think
as well.
part of what we do. So when you run a WAS module, you either you choose between a head of time compilation and JIT compilation, basically. And if the benefits of doing JIT compilations or compilation at runtime is that you get true portability, right? You can now run this on different processing architecture and so on. When we're in the cloud, we're in a known environment. We know the processing architecture, we know the operating system, which means that we can compile the module within the WebAssembly runtime beforehand, which means that when we start it, we don't have to do compilation from WASM into native code, or whatever you want to call that. And so those are some of the optimizations you can do because we're in a known environment. But if you do that in general, you sort of give up on the portability. So there are trade-offs there.
Yeah, and I understand that you want to keep that more into your own environment, that you don't open source that's intellectual property, etc.
Oh, it's just a feature of the runtime of WASM, basically.
Okay.
So you just use it the way it fits into your use case, really, right? Like if you had a scenario where it's distributed computing on IoT devices, you might not want to do ahead of time if you don't know where the thing is going to run. But if you know where it's going to run, you can make use of that as an optimization.
Yeah, got it. Cool.
Okay, well, thanks. This was really interesting. Thanks for coming by, and really good and interesting conversations. I might want to take you up on some of the things you set out and reach out, maybe to discuss more in details some of those use cases that you've been thinking of. So thank you for bringing that to this meeting.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll be following you.
That's good. That's good to hear. Yeah, so thanks everyone. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll put this video up on YouTube and other people can swing by and listening. And we'll have another community call a month from now. It will be more aligned with the US time zone. But then 2 months out, we should be back at 9 a.m. Central European time. Not sure what time zone everyone is on, but yeah. So thanks everyone for stepping by and have a great day.
Bye-bye.